Hey everybody, of course, it's me, Mann. Wanted to talk to you guys. I just had a beautiful conversation with my partner, and normally what we do on Saturday mornings is we have a conversation probably for about an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It just depends. But today we had this conversation, and normally what we do on Saturdays is that we talk about business. We talk about, her business, my business, the directions in which, we want to go within our business, what goals we have for the week, what we're going to try to accomplish, that type of thing. And so today, we talked more or less about my business. She talked about her business a little bit, probably for the first 20 minutes, because she still has some things that she's working on. And so we were talking about some things that, for my personal brand, some things that I wanted to do. And so what I love about our relationship is that we are able to talk about some in-depth things. Like, we really just are. We're able to have these experiences, the conversations that feel like an experience. It feels like we start someplace and then we end up another place. Like, in between, there's some roads that we travel. There's some mountains that we climb. And what I mean by this is that she and I are able to talk to each other in a way that allows us to expand our minds and to grow mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And it is the most amazing relationship. And I know that, I use the word amazing a lot, and I do, because, phenomenal is a great word as well. But it's just to really explain what we have is such an amazing feat to even just try to explain it. So anyway, we were having this conversation, and we were talking about some things that I'm getting ready to do with this show that I'm getting ready to start or air in the upcoming weeks. And so we were talking about some topics, and the way that she sees me is so dope. Sometimes it's like, dang, like, you see me in a whole other way than I see myself. But the way that she sees me is so dope. She was asking me these questions because in our relationship, we've really been delving deep into some things that have happened, and how we're trying to, make those paths clear so that we can move further within that particular experience. And so she basically told me that, I've changed, I've grown, and I'm different. And she, not in a bad way, she asked me, she said, I can see the softer side of you. And so what I asked her was, what do you mean by that? And she said, I can see the softer side of you, meaning that you are allowing yourself to open up. You're allowing yourself to be vulnerable. You're really doing your work. You're working on yourself. What has brought about that change? And I told her that answer is twofold. And I'm going to share some things with you guys that outside of her, no one else knows. And so I told her, I said, it's twofold for me. From a personal aspect, I had to change the way that I think so that I can move differently. And how I began to do that is I ask myself questions. I delve more into who it is that I am. I no longer say, well, that's just me, that's just Kai, and let that ride, because we're always able to move to a higher place in life, but only when we dare to open ourselves up even to ourselves. And so I told her, I said, a lot of times when I'm doing anything, I'll check my motives. I'll ask myself, well, what's your real motive behind this? Like, what's the real reason why you want to do that? And I make sure my motive is right. If my motive is right, then I'll go ahead and I'll do a thing. what's different about me in our relationship is that I realized that I wanted our relationship to look a certain way. In order for it to look that way, I had to clean some things up within myself. So I had to ask myself, what makes her tick? What makes her feel the way that she feels? What makes whatever it was to help improve our relationship for it to begin to look like I wanted it to look. I had to make those changes within the relationship. And so she asked me a very personal question after, I asked her about what does she mean about me being softer. She asked me, she said, how do you see yourself when I say that that you've gotten softer? And I said, well, to me, I said, I think I've been going through for quite some time menopause, and I've been going through some personal changes. And what is happening with me is that a lot of times when you're going through these changes and you've been a certain way for so long, you begin to not know who you are. And as those changes are happening, when you begin to realize that it's part of the process and that you have to allow those changes to occur, you'll end up fighting against the process, which makes it in turn that much harder and take that much longer. And so I told her, I said, I just let myself go. I allowed myself to be, to flow within the process and to not allow myself to, fight against it, because I wanted a different result. I had said about 4 years ago that I wanted to do everything differently, which means that I had to think differently. I had to ask myself questions. I had to delve deeper into who it is that I am, and I had to be okay with those things. And the one thing that, I told her, I said, you're right, that I am being more vulnerable, which means that I'm digging deep within myself and I'm sharing some things with her that I've never shared with anybody. And in this particular process of going through menopause and, being who I am, which is Kai, I'm not the type of person to really, I don't like to label myself. I never have. So when people ask me, are you stud, you femme, you whatever, I said I'm just Kai. And so she asked me, well, how has, just being you allowed you to be vulnerable? And I said, I realized at one point, going through all this whole menopause thing and just, up one day, down the next, in, out, whatever, that I just had to ride with whatever the flow was, because I did not want to miss the process. I really didn't want to miss the process by fighting it. But going back into that space of being a little bit more masculine than I have been in this particular space, I said to myself, whatever it looks like on the end of this is what you have to allow. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't believe that I'm going to be wearing makeup and, wearing dresses. That ain't what's going to happen. But I believe that who I am as a person will completely change. I believe that this process, and although it's been a scary process, it really has been a scary process going through it, because you don't know what's on the other side, and you don't know if the person that you walking the journey with, when you get to the other side, if they're still going to be holding your hand. But you have to be willing to, for me, I had to be willing to go through this process no matter what the process was, and to say, if at the end she's not holding my hand, then so be it, because I want to be better for me. Yes, I need to be better for me, and I need to allow whatever this process is to happen so that that can occur. And so I won't lie and say that, some parts of it has been scary, like, whoa, like, what's that? And, and feeling like, and one thing I told her, I said, a lot of times when we're in the process of changing, certain things that we don't want to be vulnerable about because it makes us weak. And I said, I realized that, I equated weakness with femininity. And so I didn't want to show that feminine side of me, or that weak side, or that vulnerable side of me, in which, you know, it doesn't look that way. You know, when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you can still be who it is that you are without feeling like, you know, you're less than the person that you started out being. Anyway, I'm going to end this video and I'm going to restart it.